So game week 1 is over then, and already some prices are starting to change. Some debates are going on Twitter about who you should keep, who you should sell, and today I thought I'd make a video and just let you know my opinions on who I think the best players to buy, keep, sell and avoid are. So let's jump straight into things. Getting straight into the buys then, I've decided to go for one player from every single position, and starting us off, we've got Robert Sanchez in goals, 4.5 million. I think he could be a good buy. Obviously Kepa is off to Real Madrid now, which leaves Sanchez as the main number 1 goalkeeper. And when have you ever had a 4.5 goalkeeper that plays for a top 6 club regularly? And there's no news so far of whether Sanchez will be getting another partner in goals. Chelsea don't really seem active in the transfer market in that department, so I think Sanchez looks like a very good buy for 4.5 million for some of you who are looking to get off your goalkeepers after the first game week. Next up we have Chilwell. Again, for Chelsea, you can see the fixtures there are great, and after the first game against Liverpool, Chilwell just looked very good, easily the best Chelsea player in the team in terms of attacking wise anyways. And if I quickly get up the heat map there, you can see how attacking he actually was, barely coming back into his own half and really just being extremely attacking, getting up the field. Obviously got an assist as well as a disallowed goal, and yeah, I think Chilwell just looked absolutely fantastic at the weekend. So for me, I think he probably is the best defender you can have right now in your team. Most people started with him, I did as well. A lot of people were hanging off on a little bit to see what was going to happen with him. I think after his game week 1 performance, you can definitely say he is a buy. Now Maddison as well I've got in here. I think he's probably the best player to buy out of the midfielders. A lot of people would have seen a lot of the midfielders like Bruno and Rashford who didn't really do it as well, and maybe looking to get them out. Maddison at 7.5 million is cheaper than that, so you can keep some money in the bank to upgrade elsewhere. Obviously Man United coming up, you could be saying maybe wait a week until the game against Bournemouth, but Man United ended up conceding a lot of chances to a team like Wolves, and I think with the way Spurs play, Maddison could end up getting another return or two, obviously after the 2 assists at the weekend. So yeah, I think for me Maddison's the go-to midfielder. Next is Watkins, 8 million. I think he's probably the buy of the strikers. I would have preferred to start with him, but as a Salah owner it was very difficult to get him in. But I think Watkins will be very good, especially over the next 2 game weeks against Everton and Burnley. And yeah, again, he's on penalties, and I think after the disappointing game from Villa against Newcastle, Villa are at home now against Everton, and I think they're going to have a point to prove, and I think they're probably going to score a couple of goals. Everton didn't really look up to much against Fulham, and I think Villa are going to score, as I say. So I think that's going to be split between Diaby and Watkins, but obviously Watkins being the number 1 pick there, I think he'll do fantastically. And for the sells then, we're starting off with Ramsdale, still 18% owned in FPL. Obviously with Arsenal's great fixtures, he probably would have been a popular pick, but I think with Raya now signed on loan with Arsenal, there's going to be a bit of rotation there. I think he's just going to be a bit of a dodgy pick. Obviously if you've got him and he doesn't play, he can just sub out for your bench goalkeeper, but a lot of the time you don't really want to be having a 5 million goalkeeper in there who doesn't play. So for me, it's a sell. I think there's much better goalkeepers you can get at the 4.5 mil range, and obviously Onana as well at the 5 mil range. Kieran Trippier, 6.5 million, I do think was a bit of a dodgy pick at the start, but he's still 33% owned, which means 1 in 3 teams in the whole entire game have him, which is over 3 million people. I do think it's probably one to sell for now, even with the first game week. Newcastle scored 5 goals and he unfortunately didn't get involved in any of those. And with the upcoming fixtures, I just don't think it's really going to be good for clean sheets for any sort of Newcastle players, never mind a 6.5 million defender. So for me, I'd be getting Trippier out and going for a cheaper defender to free up money elsewhere, because as I say, Trippier never get involved in any of the 5 goals that Newcastle scored against Villa. can't really see them getting too many goals against the likes of City, Villa and Brighton, and I don't think they'll be keeping clean sheets either. So for me, Trippier is a sell. Moving on to Bruno Fernandes, I think this is a bit more of a controversial one. I think basically just with having Fernandes there, he's just playing a bit too deep for what you expect from the Man United number 10. I think it's going to be difficult with Mason Mount in the team for him to push forward. I don't think United are going to have Mount drop back so that Fernandes can push forward. I don't really think Mount is that kind of player. But yeah, so playing deep, you're really relying on Fernandes getting penalties to get really any points there. Again, I can show Bruno's heat map here, and yeah, he's not really getting in the positions that you want. You can see the opponent's box there. He's barely been in it over the 90 minutes. And for me, yeah, I think at that price, especially when you've got Maddison there, $1 million cheaper, that's definitely one of the transfers I would be considering this week. Evan Ferguson as well came on, obviously scored, which was great for anyone who did own him, but I think going forward, he's probably not one that you're going to want to have, because he's just not nailed to start. You can't really rely on 12 minutes every game, and with Welbeck in there, it's just not going to be too viable for a couple of games. I think at that price you can get Wissa, who also scored against Spurs, and you can get João Pedro, who's also on penalties, for $500,000 cheaper. And I think there just is better options. Evan Ferguson could easily come good and end up getting regular starts, and at that point he becomes an option again. But I think at this point of the season, with Welbeck starting the first game, I think Brighton are still trying to ease Ferguson into the squad. But off the start, I don't really think he's going to be an option. So I would sell and go for one of these similar priced strikers. Now moving on to the keeps then, a couple of players that either didn't play or didn't play so well in Game Week 1 that I think you should be given a second chance to. We've got Flecken in goal, 4.5, obviously conceded 2 goals to Spurs, ended up getting 4 saves as well, and unfortunately that was the points for those saves were cut off due to the goals, so Flecken ended up on a 2-pointer, but I still think he will be good. I don't think his position's really under fire. I think he has the number 1 shot at Brentford, and obviously you can see by the fixtures there, they've got Fulham, Palace and Bournemouth coming up. I think that's going to be very good for any sort of Brentford defender, and especially the goalkeeper. We've seen that Flecken can get the saves, and I think with Fulham they didn't really offer too much against Everton. Scored a goal obviously, but again not too much. Palace as well, really nothing, didn't offer much attacking wise, and then Bournemouth at home, anyone would be hoping to keep a clean sheet there. So I think for Flecken, I would be keeping him purely because of those fixtures. John Stones obviously didn't start, but I think he's back now, and he's definitely the best City player you can own, purely because of the attacking potential, and he plays kind of as a defensive midfielder role. So I think for FPL, Stones is definitely up there as one of the better defenders. Yeah, I think you can easily see him back in the squad this week. With Super Cup on Wednesday, we'll see what happens with that lineup, but I think Stones is definitely a keep to at least give another couple of weeks to, because the City fixtures are that good that I think you definitely want to have one of them, and as I say, Stones is probably the best. In terms of Rashford, I think he's probably a keep. Obviously it was a poor performance against Wolves, but that was the same with the entire team, so you can't really just blame it on him. I think the game against Spurs coming up this week, he is going to excel there. That's the kind of game that Rashford loves to play, with the counter-attacking kind of football, getting in behind, and with the way Spurs are attacking right now and leaking chances, I think that's going to be the perfect game for Rashford to sneak in a goal or two. Obviously Nottingham Forest as well at home, that's everyone's dream game for a striker or a midfielder in FPL's case, and I think Rashford again will be very good there. We saw what he can do last season, and I wouldn't be rushing to anything just off of one poor performance. Then we've got Nick Jackson, who didn't get anything against Liverpool, wasn't really expected to get anything against Liverpool, but he still had a good performance, and again Chelsea have some great fixtures coming up all the way up till about game week 8. And I think Jackson could be a great hold all the way up till then. He had 4 shots and was definitely just looking dangerous against Liverpool, and yeah, I think for the upcoming weeks against West Ham, Luton and Forest again, two fantastic fixtures in there that you're going to be wanting at least a Chelsea attacker, and you're sitting there with Chelsea's number 9 at 7 million. So for me, he is definitely a keep. And finally, the players you should avoid, either the best or some of the best scoring players from Game Week 1 that I think could end up being traps, or some players that are heading for a price rise or already have risen in price. We're starting with Leno at 4.5 million. The goalkeeper of Game Week 1, he scored, I believe, 12 points and had a very, very decent game. He ended up with, I think, 9 saves it was against Everton, but Fulham got very lucky to keep that clean sheet. Everton got a disallowed goal that really shouldn't have been disallowed, and yeah, so he ended up getting 12 points. I believe it was all 3 bonus points he got, but I wouldn't be looking to move on to him. He's one of those players that would have been good for a rotation of 2 goalkeepers, and then you'd end up be subbing him for the next couple of weeks. But I think with those fixtures, with Arsenal, City, both away games, you're not going to be wanting him. Yeah, we'll probably pick up the saves, but I don't think they're really going to matter, because I think the goals conceded are going to highly outweigh the saves, and it's going to be very difficult for Leno to pick up a big haul over the next few weeks. We've also got Ake in there. Now obviously he played for City with a few of the defenders out, and ended up getting some bonus points as well. But Ake's one of those players that could easily just be benched in the next game for City, no matter how good he plays. Obviously they've just signed Vardiol as well for 80-90 million. And he's a left-sided centre-back, so he could easily take Ake's place. And I think for me, as good as Ake is, it's just not really going to be one you want to be fiddling about with Pep's rotation. I think if you're picking a City player, you've either got to go Diaz when he comes back or Stones. Other than that, I think all of them are very rotation prone. Next up is Rodri, the first player who's actually risen in price, which to me is actually very surprising. I can't believe this many people are jumping onto him already. In FPL, he's just not that great of an asset. Obviously, he got a goal and assist, but that's not going to happen every week. The guy is the defensive midfielder for Man City, and again, he's just not going to be getting those points every week. And as one of those midfielders, you don't really want to be picking defensive type players in FPL. Because you're really just getting the clean sheet point from the defence and the 2 for getting 60 plus minutes. So Rodri's going to be one of those guys who gets as many points as he did this week, and then he'll get 2 points again next week, and then he'll drop right back down in price because everyone's wondering why they picked him. So for me, Rodri's definitely an avoid. Next up is Isaac, another player who's risen in price up to 7.6 million, which again is another surprising one considering he's got City straight away from home. Now Isaac, obviously a fantastic striker, and when Newcastle's fixtures change, he's definitely going to be one to consider. But I think right now, they've got City, then they've got Liverpool, then they've got Brighton, and then they have Brentford as well. That's 4 very, very solid defences. And I think there's just better options for his price. You can get Nick Jackson, who just has better fixtures. Watkins for a bit more expensive, again with just better fixtures. And Isaac isn't even on the penalties when Wilson's on the pitch. And then speaking of Wilson, Isaac came off after 68 minutes and Wilson came on as well. So I think there's just a lot of rotation there that could end up happening with Newcastle, and Isaac is probably an avoid. So that wraps everything up for the video. Let me know down in the comments what kind of transfers you're planning on making, and let me know how you all did in Game Week 1. But thank you all for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.